I'm Dan and thanks for watching. This video is a little bit different to what I'd normally record. Normally we're talking about business and marketing, but I wanted to tell you a bit about what's happened to me recently with my ADHD diagnosis. So if you're going to carry on and watch this, if you're in the UK, you can use this service. If not, hopefully you'll find it useful anyway. But basically, I'm 35 years old. As far as I know, I've always grew up knowing I had ADHD. My mother told me that I was diagnosed at a young age. I went to a child psychologist from the age of 2. I went for several years to these places, like to see psychiatrists and see therapists and all these different people for years, probably until around the age of 8. But I was never given Ritalin or any medication because of my epilepsy and the possible effects. So when I stopped fitting at the age of like 9 or 10, I went on, didn't get any kind of help, gradually came off the medication for epilepsy, and that was it really. The child psychiatry stopped after a while. No other input. I went into high school, carried on having problems, and obviously went into work, and it follows on. And then I eventually managed to get myself a decent job. That kind of, for me, as over the years, this has always been in the back of my mind, and I've understood ADHD, but not as well as I do now. But I've not spoke to as many people about ADHD or found out the support and all these different things. But basically, I had a job for nearly 13 years until recently that kind of masked my symptoms. So the job was perfect. I worked shift work, working days and nights, so staying up all night wasn't an issue. It was fast paced. I didn't have to concentrate on anything for too long, and I could multitask. And when it got really busy and others kind of struggled or flapped around and didn't know what they were doing and panicked, I was just quite happy. I was in my element. So that job for me was perfect, but not forever. I wanted to run a business, and I got quite down about the fact that I hadn't achieved what I wanted to do. So that happened. So a couple of years ago, when my son was diagnosed with ADHD, or started on the path, and I started looking into ADHD more, and then finding out various Facebook groups, I started to speak to other adults. Not even intentionally at first. Some of it was just to find out how I could help my son, and so he didn't have to go through the same struggles like many people do. And I suddenly started speaking to people and finding out that they struggle with lots of the same things. Like time blindness is a real thing. If you're late for everything, or unorganised, or late for everything, and can't seem to finish things, all these are problems that we struggle with. And I had no idea that this could still be affecting me now as an adult, or that it was, there's treatment available, or that other people struggled in the same way. So just through Facebook and listening to podcasts and looking at Attitude magazine and things like that, I've learned a lot. So I went to my GP and I explained that I'd had this thing in childhood. Could they look, and could I be treated in any way? And there wasn't a lot of help, to be fair. My GP eventually referred me to a neurodevelopment team for adults in the local area. And in the UK on the NHS, that's all free and provided for. We pay for our healthcare by paying insurance, national insurance from your wages. So, perfect. And that was it, really. I got a letter back probably a month later or a bit longer, hoping it would be good news. And the referral was rejected. So they wrote to the GP and myself and said, look, we can't treat this patient. We can't take me on because I have a previous diagnosis. We only deal with new patients. So the next question was to the GP to say, well, what is there? What help is there? And then they were stubbed. So again, I did my own research. I looked at the NHS guidelines and what's called the NICE guidelines, NICE, on ADHD and the management and treatment. And I suggested to my GP to kind of refer me to just general psychiatric services. That would do anything really, just get the ball rolling and get me some help. So the doctor tried that, but again, it comes under the same umbrella, the same NHS group that deal with this. So again, it was rejected. So the third time, after speaking to the NHS group myself, and obviously I'd worked in this area for a number of years in the ambulance service, so I kind of had an idea of the system. And then after speaking to people involved in that service and asking how they could help, I went back to the GP for the third time and asked, could I be referred? And asked them to just completely ignore the old diagnosis, disregard that and treat me as a new patient, because I've got nothing on paper to say there was a diagnosis. I was probably 2 years old or younger, or a bit older than that, but I was young. I've never had treatment, never had medication or help. So just treat me as a brand new patient and diagnose me from scratch, and hopefully this is going to work. So the GP agreed. They sent off the paperwork. Again, it took quite a while, probably a couple of months, and we got a response that said, no, we cannot help this patient, again, because there was a previous diagnosis. So, to me, there's a massive issue in the system. We could talk about the politics and about the NHS and the pressures. Some people blame the government. We've got a whole generation of people, or generations of people, that grew up using the NHS for absolutely everything, and calling ambulances because they've got a toothache, or expecting everything to be handed out for free, which puts pressure on and costs us a fortune and whatever. So that's a different debate. But either way, there's a massive issue with ADHD, autism, and all different things and actually getting diagnosis and help. There's a huge waiting list, and it depends on where you live, your postcode, what services are available in your area. So there's a company called Psychiatry UK. So I had already started looking at private assessments, private prescribing, and all these other things. And a lot of them were in London, some were other areas of the country. And it's a lot of money. Some of the assessments were kind of £500 to, more than that, up to £1,000, depending on what service you look at. And, they offered a private assessment, but then you've got to then pay for the initial assessment, your titration, so you're actually getting the medication, and then changing the medication, upping the dose, changing medication if it doesn't suit you, and all of this. So this could take several months, several appointments, and cost you thousands of pounds. And also, when you've got a prescription privately, you need to pay for that privately. So you don't pay the NHS price. Obviously, we pay a subsidised price. We pay around £8 or £9 for a prescription, no matter what the item is. If you've got paracetamol, it costs 30p. If you get that on the NHS, it costs the NHS money. But if you have tablets for, say, shingles, where the treatment's around £100, again, it's subsidised, and we only pay £8. That's just for the benefit if you're looking outside the UK. So just to give you an idea, our healthcare is pretty standard with prescription charges. So going privately can cost an absolute fortune because you do pay for it yourself. So I heard of Psychiatry UK, and I kind of looked at what they were doing. I heard good things about them, and privately, they've been really good. But they then offered NHS referrals. So I started looking up into that and looking at NHS guidelines. If there isn't a service available in your area, each area of the UK has a CCG, like a funding group. It's managed by doctors, senior doctors. They all run it together, and they choose what's funded in their area. So if there's a influx of teenagers being pregnant, they might want to put more money into that to prevent that, and for various things really. If there's massive drug abuse in one area, they might put money into things to help them, rehabilitation, or all sorts of things. But they decide what's funded, and obviously they're paid for this service for neurodevelopment, but the terms of that service, whether they only treated new people. So I contacted Psychiatry UK. I didn't speak to my GP again. I just literally went to Psychiatry UK. I found a form and filled it in myself to say, what I struggled with and that I wanted funded from the NHS. So Psychiatry UK then wrote to me, they wrote to my GP and requested funding, which obviously goes to the CCG. And then the GP received the letter. I went to see my GP, and they agreed to send it on to support my claim, basically, and to send it to the CCG. And now, this is where it can be a lottery. It depends on where you live, and again, different treatments. But for ADHD and for Psychiatry UK, their costs are relatively low. They're cheaper than other places I've found privately. Probably some of the overheads aren't as costly, because I've later found out they do things online, which is perfect for me, to save me being late and missing appointments and going halfway across the country. So again, it's cost effective for them and easier for patients. But basically, my CCG received the letter and replied to Psychiatry UK and agreed to fund it. This was all in a couple of months. So where I've been waiting probably 18 months to 2 years to try and get any help, this is only recently as well. So years ago I tried to get help again, but forgot about it after a while because I didn't get any. I gave up, and then that was it. But this time, within a couple of months, they'd agreed to it, they'd give the money, and I've had an appointment. So Psychiatry UK called me to say it's been successful, we've got the funding, do I want to book an appointment? I called them up, booked my appointment, and obviously I expected it to be a couple of months or weeks, and it was in a few days of after speaking to them. And I spoke to them this week, a couple of days ago. I chatted away to the psychiatrist. He agreed that I do have ADHD. He said I'll diagnose you with adult ADHD and start medication. So I'm going to be starting I forgot the name now. No, I've been Googling it all week. Basically, Ritalin. I'm going to start Ritalin because that's what the guidelines say in the UK. So I'll start Ritalin, and there'll be a titration period. So they'll try different dosages, up the dosages. And if I get on with it, obviously I'll keep that. And if not, we'll move on to something else. But yeah, it was brilliant. That was literally so easy. From them agreeing to me getting the medication, it's been, a couple of weeks. I'm just waiting to get the actual prescription now. But again, what they'll do is they'll call me back, they'll go through the prescription, tell me what to expect, how much to take, when to take it, and there'll be a couple of follow-on appointments. But as long as I'm getting on with that medication and the psychiatrist agrees that it's working well and I think it's working well, then they can go back to my GP and the GP can agree to carry on with the prescription, so I won't have to keep having appointments. And if not, there'll be a process of trying different medication, and talking to this psychiatrist online again over a conference call and doing that until it works. But for me, it's absolutely perfect, and it's so much easier. We've currently got waiting lists up and down the country, 2 or 3 years. Some areas there just isn't treatment available. So if you're considering Psychiatry UK, obviously I'm not paid by them or given any, if you prefer, and get them to fill out the form. But for me, it was so easy to go online. I'll put the link in the notes as well. But just to go online and fill it in, it was so easy. But if your CCG disagrees, we'll go to the GP first. So if your GP doesn't agree to support your claim, then you can ask to speak to the practice manager. Again, there'll be a practice manager or a senior doctor, and if not, you can go around the GP. There's the GP doesn't know about ADHD. They're not trained in psychiatry or neural development. That's not their area of expertise, so they shouldn't have any issue of referring you elsewhere. But if they do, there's other steps you can take, and you can speak to the practice manager, ask them to support you, or go directly to the CCG or change surgeries. But there's more things. But the GP can't diagnose you with ADHD or say you haven't got ADHD. So if you've done your research and you think you have, or you just want to know if you have, fill it out, ask your GP to send it to CCG, and then the CCG, because you've got a right to your own funding now, which you should have anyway, to be fair, they shouldn't really have much of an issue. But if there is an issue and they refuse to support you, again, you can make an appeal to the CCG. You can go to your local politician, that could be a councillor or a member of parliament, and ask them to support you as well. But there's lots of help available. So good luck if you go for it. I hope it works out, and I hope you finally get the help you need, because for me it's been brilliant. And it's just being told again by a psychiatrist to my face that you do have this. It makes you feel validated, and it's kind of, obviously it's horrible that you spent so many years not getting help, and you can look back and be upset and angry at what you've missed out on. But to me, I'm 35 years old. I've hopefully got more than double that time left on earth, and I can try this medication and it might work out, it might help. But just knowing that you're not wrong, and there is a reason you do certain things, and there is help available, and there's other people that struggle. It's just such a strange feeling, but it makes you feel validated, and it makes you takes the weight off your shoulder. And obviously it can help you then to try and get an understanding, and to help yourself really, to put strategies in place and know that it's for a reason. You're not just lazy, you're not stupid, you don't miss things on purpose or forget things on purpose. And then from there, having this diagnosis can open up the doors to other things, other help. So if you're in the UK, you can apply for access to work. It doesn't mean you can't have a job. So if you've got a job already and you need help, or you're not progressing as much as you thought you would in your career, you can look for access to work and get funding to help you in your job. Again, if you're self-employed or if you're unemployed, you can use the same funding, and that can help you, whether it's an ADHD coach, whether it's a piece of equipment, whether it's an assistant. I've known someone who's got a personal assistant from that funding. It's there to support disabled people, and with ADHD, you might think yourself as normal externally, but you do have a disability, and if it's affecting you and affecting the way you work, or affecting your business, or stunting the growth of your business, or just not even letting you to get your business off the ground, then that funding's available. And for me, it might be, looking into funding for a virtual assistant to help me set appointments, to help manage the tasks, the admin tasks that I don't like doing, or I could even be getting someone to use the phone for me and book appointments and do all the little things I forget to do or don't do in a certain order, or I'll do a task one day and then on the next. I'm working on that. I'm working on systems, but to know there's help available just makes the thought of the future so much easier. So I hope that helps. If you need any help with the forms or anything else, you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can. And if not, I can refer you to someone at Psychiatry UK. I've been speaking to one of the founders of the company. I think apparently I was the first in the UK to get this funding, so to get the CCG to pay for my treatment, which is brilliant. They've had a few applications, but mine's the first to actually go through and to be paid for in full, so it's amazing. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please subscribe. Most of my videos are going to be about ADHD, productivity and business. This is primarily an entrepreneurial video or YouTube channel. So if you found that useful, let me know. Please subscribe, and if you want to ask any questions, just leave it in the comments. I'd love to make more videos helping you. So thanks a lot. Take care.